Hi everyone, welcome back to Attacking and Defending Active Directory. In this video, we will continue our discussion with persistence once we have the domain admin privileges. So let's discuss about persistence using ACLs, specifically host-based security descriptors. Once we have local administrative privileges on a box, it is possible to modify security descriptors. For example, group, cycle, and decal, etc., of remote access methods or securables like WMI, partial remoting, remote registry, etc., so that even the non-admin users can access it. Right? This has been known for long. Right? For example, allowing non-administrative users to access WMI for monitoring purpose. This was a very popular method of delegating privileges or allowing non-admin to monitor inventory. This was very popular in early 2000s and mid 2000s, right? So this is something which has fallen off the radar, but it is vastly popular. It was vastly popular and of immense uh, uh, usefulness for red teamers, right? We'll soon have a look how we can use this. So what we are trying to do here is using the remote access protocols like WMI or PowerShell remoting. By default, only the administrators are allowed to use these to log on to remote machines and execute commands, etc. But by modifying security descriptors of these protocols, we can actually make our own user, which may not be a local admin on that particular machine. We allow that non-admin user access to that box, right? Command execution access to that box. Of course, because we are still talking about persistence, we need administrative privileges to do this on the target machine. In case of the domain controller, we need the domain admin privileges. Once again, this is very impactful, and the persistence time is very long, right? There are less organizations which go for ACL auditing, and even less go for auditing of security descriptors or ACLs of remoting protocols, right? You will find organizations doing ACL auditing for domain objects, but a very small number of organizations do it for remoting protocols, right? So let's have a look. Let's try to understand how can we use this. So SDDL is the format or is the language, security descriptor definition language, which defines the format which is used to describe a security descriptor. SDDL uses ACE strings for decal and cycle. What is an ACE string? This is how an ACE string looks like. ACE type, whether it is allow or deny, different ACE flags, right? Then comes different rights. Multiple rights can be clubbed together. Object GUID, inherit object GUID, and account SID. So in place of trying to understand all of this, I think I have a link to this, a reference in the slide notes, which you can have a look at later on. Right, this reference points to the SDDL definition on the Microsoft Docs. Now let's try to understand this ACE string with an example. For example, in for all the WMI namespaces, the built-in administrators group BA has the following ACE. ACE type is allow, ACE flag its container inherit. All of this is different rights. Okay, all of these clubbed together means full control over the current namespace. We can always skip the inherit object and the object GUID and the inherit object GUID, and at the very end comes the SID. For the built-in administrators, this is BA. Now, what all we need to do is to replace this BA or this SID with the SID of our account, which we would like to use here, right? So for example, if I add the SID of the student admin user here, and add it to the namespace, ACL of the namespace, the student admin user will have full control over that particular namespace, right? So let's see how we can, first let's understand how that is done using GUI, and then we can have a look at some of the scripts which implement this. So let's say we got access to the domain controller. We have escalated our privileges to DA. Now what we would like to do is to add a backdoor or add backdoor privileges so that our user, the user which we control, has the ability to execute WMI queries onto the target machine, that is the domain controller, even without having administrative privileges. Now, WMI authentication consists of two parts. One is we must have the privileges to connect to the DCOM endpoint. That is one part. Second is we must have the privileges to connect to the namespace. That is, we need to specify or we need to modify ACL of two components. First one is can be done using the GUI with the help of component services. We go to the component services, computers, my computer. Here we can have a look at the COM security part. I think it is the second one. If not, then we'll try for the first one as well. So here what I do, I add student admin and provide it full privileges here. Right? I hope that is the part, otherwise we'll modify that one as well. Now for modifying the permissions of the WMI namespaces, we go to computer management and WMI control. So here if we go to the security tab, for example, for the root namespace, this is the ACL for the root namespace. So let's go ahead and add student admin here and provide it full control over all the subsequent namespaces, right? So not only on this one, but all the child namespaces as well. So what does that mean? That means now this one is, I'm not sure which privileges this one has. So let's stop this one. Now here we have privileges of who am I. We have privileges of student admin. Now let's try simply to list classes or list some information using WMI from the domain controller. Okay, so probably this was the other one. So let's try that. So student admin. Let's allow both local access and remote access. Okay, so let me once have a look at the WMI privileges once again. So if I go to WMI, in case of root, I need to see if the privileges are being pushed down, right? That is, if all the child uh, containers have the same privileges as well. That could be the reason, right? So if I added this, okay, right, this, it was probably that was the reason. So let's try this once again. right? Because this was for the root SimV2 namespace. As you can see here, now we can actually access uh, the domain controller using WMI even without having any special privileges there. And when we say that we have uh, access with WMI, that means we have the capability to execute commands. Let's say by using the create method of the Win32 process or Win32 service or so on. There are so many methods which can be used for that. So this is how we do it with the help of a command line. What we did, we modified permissions of all the namespaces, and also we modified the permissions for the DCOM. Now let's have a look and let's remove all of these permissions which we added just now. So let's remove this. Let's remove this as well. So that was about the DCOM. And for the namespace part, let's edit this. Let's first of all make it for the only the current namespace, right? So that it is removed there, and then let's remove it. Now, do we still have the same capability? Of course not, right? So this is how we can modify the ACL of two components, just two components, to avoid any user, to provide any user privileges to connect to the DC and execute commands, right? So this was using the GUI. Now let's have a look at how we can do it with the help of a script. Set remote WMI is a script which I wrote to simply implement whatever we have seen now, right? That is to modify the DCOM ACL and the namespace ACL to provide a non-admin user access to WMI securable. So, for example, if we load, and once again, please keep in mind that to be able to use this with the domain controller, we must run the script as the domain administrator, right? Once again, we are still in the persistence part. So we run this initially with the DA privileges, and then we use DA privileges to provide the user access to the WMI on the domain controller. And then we use those users' privileges to execute commands onto the domain controller without even being admin there. So the script, if we have a look at it, so we need to run the script as a domain admin. Let's load the script, set remote WMI. Now there are different options, so different namespaces for which we can change the permission. By default, set remote WMI with username student1 or whatever user we would like to add. This adds a full control for the student1 user on all WMI namespaces and DCOM on the local machine. Now, let's say we want to do it on the remote one. Let's say this one, the DCOM DC, and only for the root SimV2 namespace, right? Not on all the namespaces. So if I run this part, and here you can see that I'm not providing explicit credentials. That is for scenarios like this where we are running it from a session which already has domain admin privileges. So let's do it for student admin on dcorp dc.$corp.moneycorp.local. So I run this. So what happens now, this function reads the existing ACL for the namespace root simv2, which was this. You will like to notice this is the one which we took as an example, right? Allow container inherit all rights for the built-in administrator, and we added this one. The new ACL for namespace roots MV2 is allow container inherit full control for this particular SID. What is this SID? This is the SID for the student admin user. Let's quickly confirm that. So if I run get net user, okay, it's not loaded here. So if I run AD tools power view get net user, username student admin, we will see that this 1212, this is us, this is our current user, right? So we added a full control for the roots MV2 namespace. Similarly, what was the existing ACL for DCOM? It was this part. So what we added here was this, allow full control for our current user. What does that mean? That means that now we should be able to run this again, right? We should not get an access denied now. So let's try this. If I run this, now you can see that we can once again, so this particular error was because I inserted a slash while pressing the enter key. So here we can see that we can now execute WMI onto the remote machine, which is the domain controller in this case, even without being a local admin or a domain admin, right? This is very useful. Now, similarly, similar stuff we can do for PowerShell remoting. So let's try something like this. If I run invoke command, let's say with script block, simply who am I, on the computer called dcorp dc, that is our domain controller. Let's see if we can run this. Of course we cannot. We get an access denied because we do not have domain admin privileges. Now if I load the script set remote ps remoting, another script which I wrote as a proof of concept, all that works really fine in real world assessments as well. It is still a POC. We can use this script to do something similar to what we have done for WMI, right? Okay, before running the new one, let's remove the permissions we added previously. Okay, and here, now let's add the new one. Set remote ps remoting, and now I run set remote ps remoting with username as student admin. Computer name is going to be tcorp dc. So it is even easier to operate, right? There is no namespace or anything which we need to modify. So when I ran this, and now if I go here and run this particular command, we can do this, right? Now we can simply execute commands over PowerShell remoting even without having domain admin privileges on the domain controller, right? This is huge, very impactful. Now this is just one other option of the various options we have. We can also simply go ahead and modify uh, permission on the remote registry service and multiple registry keys to do some more interesting stuff. So this is these functions are part of the DAMP toolkit written by Will and other guys. So what I can do here, if we run this with the domain admin privileges, this the first function added modifies the permissions on the required registry keys and services, and then we can start extracting information, right? So let's try this one. So let's load the DAMP toolkit once again. For the first time, we need to run it with the domain admin privileges. Let me see if the toolkit is here. Do we have damp here? Okay, it's not here. So let me quickly copy that. So once we have copied the tool onto this directory, we do have. Let's start a partial session as domain administrator, and let's load the tool. Right. First, we are going to run the add remote reg backdoor script, which, as the name suggests, modifies WMI and some registry keys so that uh, whatever user we specify here can access it, can access the keys without being a domain admin. So we did it for student admin. Now, if we go to a normal session and run this, uh, get uh, remote hash retrieval. Now what we can do without having domain admin privileges, we can extract interesting pieces of information uh, like get remote machine account hash. If I run this one here, now what we get is, okay, it says the parameter we cannot be specified because it conflicts with the parameter alias of the same name. Okay, so let's see. I have seen this problem once earlier as well. IV. Okay, so if I quickly edit this script, I think we can do it right away. So, oops. So here, if I look for IV, there is something called IV here? Okay. So let's replace it with init_v. So replace $iv with $init_v. Save it. And if I load the script now, and then I try to run it, oh, it works fine. So what we have now is the machine account hash of the domain controller. Now we can do a lot of interesting things if we have the domain controller machine account. One of them we have already seen. What was that? The silver ticket attack. With this machine account hash, we can always create a silver ticket to access any service on the domain controller. Any machine which uses the machine account, any service which uses the machine account. What were those services? All the interesting ones use machine account as the service account. What else we can do? We can extract hash of the local account or all the local accounts. So if I run this now, you can see that we can retrieve a hash of the local administrator account, which was this user. We have seen this earlier as well. This is the DSRM administrator on the domain controller. So this way we can actually do a lot of interesting stuff by modifying security descriptors on any machine. What we did here in case of WMI, PowerShell remoting, and remote registry, we actually looked at the domain controller as an individual machine and not the domain controller, right? As I said earlier as well, not many organizations, there is a very small set of organizations who would actually detect this, right? Some organizations do domain object ACL auditing, but not for this thing. Now, this brings us to our next learning objective. There are two tasks. First one is you need to modify security descriptors on DCOP/DC to get access and command execution capabilities using PowerShell remoting and WMI without requiring administrator access. That is one part. Second one is to retrieve machine account hash from DCOP/DC without using administrative access and use that to execute a silver ticket attack to get code execution once again with WMI, right? So that is all for this video. Hope you liked it. Thank you very much for watching.